All right, Jonny, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It's getting hot now in LA. The heat is coming, so we'll have to make sure we move through this quite quickly so the studio doesn't get too hot.
It's good beach weather though, for sure.
Are you a beach guy?
Yeah. I mean, I born and raised here in LA. Pretty much lived up the beach through the summers and everything like that. I mean, that was the thing to do. Yeah. Or even skip school to go to the beach too. Yeah, right. That too, right?
It doesn't just happen in the movies.
No, it doesn't.
It's funny. You are probably like the third or fourth actual person I've met here who was born here and is still here.
You've done a lot of podcasts. So I mean, are we like a few, like limited few that are a dying breed of Angelinos?
I think you are. I feel like everyone that I've chatted with, and I haven't really dealt with people just in the entertainment industry. I've talked to like all kinds of amazing people, but everyone is a transplant. Like they've come from the East Coast or they've come from the Midwest.
Yeah.
And then, when they came out here after college, it was like a big thing and they and then they made their way here. But to talk to someone who actually grew up here is really exciting.
And we welcome them with open arms. Yet if we move to Texas or New York, or they're like, get out of here.
Oh, really?
I don't know. It just seems like as my sister lives in Texas, it seems like, places like Austin and Seattle are like, hey, stop coming to our cities.
Yeah. I've heard that people in Austin are starting to get bitter about all the Californians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that story.
The traffic. Yeah. And the airport. The airport apparently is not big enough for like the way the city's growing now. So they've got airport traffic and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So it's not the best.
I can see that. So
I like it here though. I mean, like I came here like 7 months ago, just before the new year, and it's been really quite, inspiring.
Yeah. Well, from one adventure to another, right? Yeah, you're kind of staying here for a while, right?
That's the plan, yeah. Okay. I would like to. Because I lived, like when I graduated university, instead of coming to LA, I went to China. And I started my career there. And then I worked as a photographer for the New York Times for like a decade covering China. And I also worked for Time, Newsweek, Forbes, and Fortune. And it's nice to actually talk to someone who remembers magazines.
Yes, exactly, right? Those paper things that had binding on it.
I mean, I grew up idolizing National Geographic. And magazines, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know my grandparents got me National Geographic subscription when I was a kid because you do, in school, you do reports and papers and everything like that. But, and then there wasn't much to do at my grandparents' house. And they were in Chicago, in a suburb in Chicago. And the fun thing to do is look through National Geographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember all the great photographers like Mike Yamashita and Steve McCurry, who had that famous and those magazines and the photos and the writing, like they're still with me.
Yeah,
like even to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing the art of a photograph, and a photograph can still live on too. Like the photo just occurred of the white buffalo, that they found in Yellowstone, and guy was lucky to find a photo like that. Of the white buffalo, so it's cool stuff.
I wonder if it was taken on his phone or on a film camera.
No, he did own a film camera. They interviewed him. He came with his, at least he was faking it with his large camera that he supposedly took the photo of.
Amazing, so, yeah. Amazing. I got to get up there. I love Montana. I filmed there once a long time ago, but it's time to go back.
Yeah, I'd love to go up there. I haven't seen it. Yeah.
So, okay, so you're skipping school to go to the beach in LA. What was it like kind of being a kid in La La Land? Like, because, did you get caught up in the skateboarding scene? Did you get caught up in the music scene? Did you get caught up in the surfing scene? What was your scene?
Yeah, I mean, it was more I guess it was beach volleyball skating scene. I mean, when I was a little, what you would call a grommet, you'd see the Dogtown guys skating around, and we'd just be in awe of them, of, Peralta and Soy and all those guys, and amazing skaters. But I played sports, Little League baseball, everything like that. But I was privileged. I was born and raised in the entertainment business. My parents were in it, and I just kind of grew around that whole aspect of Hollywood, which was fun. And I really, was fortunate and lucky to have parents like that. But also to keep you grounded, I mean, those were my parents were from Chicago. It's kind of that Midwest mentality and not the LA fake thing that some people have. And I was just, they taught me life lessons, and it was great. It was great to live in LA.
Mm-hmm. It's, I mean, the city was much smaller then, right? I mean, now it just feels like it's almost chaotic.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. It's I go back to the 84 Olympics, and it will never not be like this for the 2028 Olympics. It'll be crazy town. But it was really interesting that the city is saying, please, mind the traffic and take the buses and whatever. And even though the transportation system was awful in back then, there was so much transportation get to Olympic areas and, go to UCLA gymnastics or take a bus downtown because they just had shuttles everywhere. And the freeways were practically empty. It was amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a Carmageddon for Olympics at that time. And I really remember it as you could really you could get around because people were using, the bus system that they embedded for the Olympics, and it was great. Yeah.
Now it takes like an hour and a half to get to Burbank.
Oh my gosh. My wife and I were going to a comedy show, I think a month ago we live near the beach, and we were driving into Hollywood, and it took us 2 hours.
Jesus.
It was horrible.
Were you going to the Comedy Store?
No, we were going to an old theater. Netflix was doing a week of Netflix as a joke, and we went to see a comedian, and that my wife wanted to see, and it just took forever. But it was a weekday. It was a Friday, I think, or no, it was like a Thursday.
Yeah,
and it was just nuts, and it took us 2 hours and missed our restaurant reservation, the whole thing, and we just drove straight to the comedy show.
Yeah. I think that's just life here, though, isn't it?
Yeah. You just have to get used to it. If you live near the beach, there's kind of a saying, you just don't go east of the 405. It's just you just don't. But
thank you for coming east of the 405 today.
I did it today, which is not a problem. But I'm
very thankful.
Early to know, and I got here earlier than expected.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I appreciate that. So, I mean, you're growing up, your parents are in the entertainment industry. May I ask what they did?
Yeah, my dad went from, he was actually a salesman. He sold a old baseball show called Home Run Derby in the Midwest. And then he started running one of the television stations for ABC in Chicago. And then they transferred him to Detroit. And then 14 months later, and this is now 68, they moved him to run KABC, Los Angeles station.
Wow.
And so he did that and did editorials and everything. And then he got hired by NBC to run programming for NBC in the 70s. So that was Sanford and Son, Facts of Life, Rockford Files, all those shows. He was the only high-level executive in Los Angeles. All the suits were still based in New York at that time. So he was really kind of running the LA side of NBC business for programming and development, and hired a few people who became bigwigs like Brandon Tartikoff and everything like that. And then he befriended Johnny Carson, and then Carson asked him to come run his company. NBC couldn't give Carson enough money at that time, so this is 1980, and he went and ran Carson Productions and got a few TV shows going and some movies, and did a bio on Carson called Johnny Comes Home, where he went back to Lincoln, Nebraska, and did a movie called Big Chill under Carson Productions. And then he went and started a movie of the week company for Paramount Pictures, and then kind of ended his career there and had some stints here or there. But
what was it like growing up having your dad work for Johnny fucking Carson?
It was, we can swear here.
We can swear as much as you like.
Okay, thank you. All right, I forgot to ask you that before we started. So
Johnny fucking Carson.
Yeah.
How epic is that?
I was a kid growing up, and occasionally he would he would come to the house and everything, or I'd go with my dad to his house down in Lower Bel Air and everything. I mean, like Joanna Carson and everything. We just watched a movie, and the Molly Ringwald was portraying Joanna Carson, so it was kind of funny. But that's a tangent. He was very to himself. You know, when you saw Carson, and I'd go to the Tonight Show. My dad would pick me up from school, and there was, you know, filming Tonight Show. I just stand between cameras and watch his shows and things like that. And, you know, I was just like, hi, Mr. Carson type thing. My dad had a lot of dinners with him and stuff, but he was very quiet outside of what he did, you know, and that's in right. I'm not saying anything that's like secretive. He kept to himself, loved tennis, loved to smoke, had a couple family dinners with him when he came up to the house. But, you know, he was nice guy from my kid eye perspective. You know, for me, it's, yes, I met the guy and I saw him occasionally. My dad worked for him, but, you know, my dad was definitely a family man. He always had the perspective as, I do my job, I pick up my paycheck, I go home to my family. Loved what he did. And sometimes, you know, he'd go to New York or, you know, business stuff, but really, I mean, I think kind of that perspective of the non-Hollywood Midwest idealism of family was first, for sure. But Johnny Carson's great, you know. Yes,
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, being surrounded by that at that young age, I mean, what ideas did that put in your head about like the possibilities of working in this business? Or, you know, I mean, I just think, you know, it takes so long for young people who want to get into this business, make television, do comedy, you know, do anything. But I mean, it takes so long for people to understand content, like, and content rights, and like making stuff, and who owns what, and where the residuals go, where the royalties go. Like, this whole business, this whole town is built on royalties and residuals, right? And it's you know, and understanding that whole business takes so much time. But it's almost like if you grow up in it, you know, you're at the age of 20 or 22, you're not graduating NYU being like, how do I be a director? You're already like, oh, I've just watched my dad do this for 20 years. Like, I know how to produce. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. Like, did you feel quite settled in this business, like at a young age?
I think it was more, I had pretty good contacts in the industry to start a career. And I think that, you know, that definitely helped me, where I start when I could start driving a car, I started working on award shows, you know, because those were kind of anywhere between 5 days or sometimes a 2-week stint. But my parents knew I wanted to get in the industry, so I did the Grammy Awards, I did Academy Awards, People's Choice Awards, and I start to know the people. And like, some of those jobs I worked for free. Like, you can't do that anymore. It's child labor laws or whatever. But
those little things.
But I'd almost do it for free practically, just to learn. Because being a kid growing up in Hollywood, you're not, you're visually seeing like setups of cameras and everything. Maybe if you're on a set, or, you know, people moving about when you're a kid, but you're not in it. You're not given a job to do. So when I could drive a car, I started working on these award shows so I could learn about, you know, stage managing, or what a camera, you know, how the camera works, or jib, or the sound, or the audio, and what the director did and what a producer did too. You know, it's you even though you were in the business, you're a kid. I'd you know, love going to the beach. Why am I thinking about producing a movie? But I guess it was in the back of my mind, so to speak.
I think that is like, because, you know, a lot of people, they see, for example, Johnny Carson on TV, and they're like, oh, that's a million miles away. But you're on the fucking soundstage with Johnny Carson and your dad, right?
Yeah.
Like, just having that access must have just been like, oh fuck, I can work in this industry. I'm already in. I mean, I'm here.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%. And I knew that's what I was going to do. So, I mean, I had thoughts of other things, be a cop, or, I liked helping people, be a firefighter, an EMT, but it was just kind of, I was in that world. And so it was an easy choice for me, for sure, to jump into the business. But you have to learn it, and you have to work hard. Somebody can open the door for you, but if you're going to have this ego about you and not want to learn anything, or my dad's JJ McMahon, like, fuck that, like, do your job, kid. I don't care who your dad was. So I always had that in my mind. It's like, I actually had to work harder because of who my dad was.
That's interesting.
I had to show everybody that I'm not phoning this in. I'm getting given an opportunity to work my ass off for you, whether you're paying me or not. Because then it's the cup half full mentality. Like, I do that, I can get there. If I do this, I got there. And I think that worked really well for me in my career, is that I just kind of always I always tried to go the extra mile. If I was a PA and I didn't have something to do, I would go to my boss or somebody, say, hey, I'm not doing so right now. What do you need? It's kind of just having that consistent, I'm not going to sit around twiddling my thumb mentality. And then people start seeing that. Maybe some people don't, but people say, hey, that kid's working hard for us. And so when I was 16 and doing the award shows, I got to know all the crew, and I started getting phone calls. Hey, this award show's coming up. Will you come, do the Emmys? Where you can start being, running the seat filling group, or, all the, when the talent gets up, you have seat fillers, and can you manage that? So
there was a Seinfeld episode about that. Do you remember?
Yes. Hilarious. Yeah.
Where Kramer was a seat filler.
Yeah. So it's exactly that. So, like,
yeah.
Not a huge job, but it's like in your teens, before you're in college, somebody gave you a job to manage a little thing for award show. So that's kind of cool, but I showed, perseverance, or I showed, that I wanted to work. And so my parents were fine, like missing 5 days of school or something like that.
It's for the Grammys.
Yeah, no, I was like, it was fun, it was a good time.
So then, I mean, so you have this background with your family. You're 16. You're skipping school to work on award shows, which is amazing. And then, do you go to university, or do you just start working right away?
No, I went to school up in San Francisco. I went to University of San Francisco, great city. One of my sisters lived up there during that time, and we always visit her. I love the city, and I like the small school aspect. And that school just fit, but I was more entranced about the city than the school. The school was just for me to get an education, get a degree.
What did you study?
Communication arts and history. I'm a huge history buff, and get a story about that, but I love history and everything. I always thought my fallback, maybe I'll be a history teacher, because I always loved, the just historical perspectives, movies about history, anything like that. It's just I love watching that stuff.
Sure. I studied political science. I do not recommend that for anyone that wants to work in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so I communication at that school was great, and it was totally fine. And I interned at a news radio station up there called KGO Radio. So I was continuing, like, my objective early and kind of into my career is try to learn all aspects of the entertainment business. And so I had done award shows before college, and then I jumped into news radio, and that was interesting. My first day at that news radio station were the riots, the Rodney King riots.
Oh, geez.
Happening in LA. And so that was my first day.
What was that, 88 or 89?
No, it was 91.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 91, I think, about that. Yeah, it was 91. So that was my first day working at KGO, and everybody's running around like, oh my God, and so the general manager at KGO saying, we got all these calls from Australia and New Zealand and Japan and everything, and you take these calls and do the interviews. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, you're not in front of a camera. They're just you're on the phone and just start talking about the riots that are happening.
While on air.
On air.
Yeah.
I was in, a station in Australia, New Zealand, a station in Japan. I don't know why I was speaking English. I don't speak Japanese, but I talked to a station in Japan too. Maybe they translate it or something. But I was giving news reports about, there was a small riot, so to speak, in downtown San Francisco occurring. And so I was getting that information from the news anchors there who were on the streets and doing that, and just, basically regurgitating what they were saying. I was regurgitating back to these
amazing
other news radio stations.
Yeah.
So that was my first, and I was doing, it was just another thing to be interested in, radio, entertainment, what's radio like? And so, but I only, did that and skipped over to, back into TV after I graduated.
Yeah.
And so I PA'd a couple shows and then became a production coordinator, which is basically you're kind of the heart of all the television production, where all the orders of lights and talent contracts and everything and dissemination of calendars and call sheets and scripts all go through you, and you've got to tell your PAs what to do and get it done and do this and that. And so, those were like 18 to 20-hour days. And at that time, I'm kind of fast forward a little, I was at Paramount Television, CBS Paramount at that time, and I befriended the production guys, the VPs of the production. So even when a show was like, they would put me on the hardest shows, the hardest TV shows to do,
because they're
like, we'll get Jonny to do production coordinator. They'll deal. He can handle and that was another thing. I think maybe because I was born grew up in the entertainment business, I didn't have I wasn't scared of a producer, like, even though they're my boss, but I like deal with them, like the different methods of their hotness. So, because they're handling a lot, they're dealing with a lot. It's their TV show, they're producing, they're dealing with the talent, the actors and everything like that. And it was also a place to learn what they were doing as a producer, so I could learn more about that. Like, how do you deal with an actor who doesn't want to get out of his trailer?
It's amazing how people can identify young people who can help you take some of the weight off your own shoulders. Like, I just feel like people who come in with a good attitude, who can actually help people who are super stressed and super busy, can go really far in this industry, because the stress levels and just the amount of things you have to coordinate to make a TV show is unbelievable.
You really have to. You really have to keep a level head. I think that's the best trait of a producer, is being able to put out fires, being a good politician, and just keeping a level head, because everybody is stressed around you.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you want to add to that stress? Internally, you can stress. Believe me, I stressed, or like go into my car and scream about something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you're leading, you're a producer, you're one of the big leaders on that set, you need to take a step back and show your leadership. So if you're angry and pissed at people and throwing F-bombs down on people, which some producers do, happens, I think that's the scare tactic of a producer, and that's how they work. That's how they do it. Fine. That's okay. I probably wouldn't work with you. And I also believe that everybody on a set is equal, from the grip to the PA to craft service. Whatever they're going to do, I'm going to try to get the best out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yelling and screaming is not going to work. Now, look, occasionally you got to if somebody's not doing something right, you've got to throw a, you know, a momentous attitude towards them, saying, you know, either, you know, put up or shut up or get out. I mean, sometimes you have to do that, but I think if you show if you show a good attitude on the set and keep things as stress-free as possible, it doesn't, stress-free is tough. It's always stressful on a set. You've got budgets, you've got to finish scenes on time. You know, the actors only have 2 hours left, you know, there's overtime, everything like that. And you're trying to push your crew to get a scene done or the day finished, so you're not going overtime. Yeah. You can feel the stress, and you just try to kind of balance those objectives.
I think the worst thing you can do is to take that internal stress and then externalize it and just put it on other people, which is never helpful.
It's never helpful.
Yeah.
It's never helpful.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it's interesting because I didn't really figure out television production until I was done my photography career. So I was a photographer, and then I didn't make my first TV show till 2010, but I made it kind of in a vacuum. Like, I was living in China. I didn't know anyone in the industry. I hired my best friend to help me video it. You know, he was a cameraman, but he never used a video camera. He was a still photographer like me. So we had this like grand vision of what could be done and how we wanted to show China and stuff like that. And then we made it, and then we didn't know how to edit it. We had to find an editor. You know, we totally like reverse engineered the whole thing. And then once we like finished it, we didn't know how to sell it. And then we found an agent to sell it, and then they fucking sold it. And then they were like, oh, we get to do another one. And that was like how I got into it. And it's funny because so many people come out of like NYU, or they come out of Southern Cal, and they start as an intern. They work at a production company. They see how it's made and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a much kind of more gradual process to getting into that that headspace.
It's hard. It's a hard business. I think, you know, life nowadays is full of challenges and everything. I've got 2 daughters who finished up college, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years, and you know, fortunately, my youngest just got a job at an advertising agency. I don't know a lot of people in advertising. I didn't make one phone call for her, but she got it. So, you know, good for her. But I think it was because of the internship she did before that got her that job. But it's hard, man. Like, you know, the television business is hard. I think the business, the entertainment business here in LA is difficult because I've got a lot of colleagues who are out of work, you know, who aren't working. Seems like there's less shows, and there's a lot of downsizing at this point in time. Now, do I think it'll change? I think there's these waves of the entertainment business that happen.
We're definitely in a down wave.
Yeah. I'm in the sports business right now. I am very happy to be in the sports business right now. Okay. I think the sports business is doing nothing but ticking up, and fringe sports is growing. And I'm very happy I'm in the sports business and not the TV movie business. But that's me personally.
Yeah.
I just think it's very difficult. I have lots of friends whose kids just graduated from school. It's tough to find jobs out there.
Yeah. It's interesting, and we'll come back to the sports stuff in a little bit, but it's very interesting because I think like peak work, I think, was really 2018, 2019, and then COVID hit, and then 2022, everyone's like, yay, we're going to start to get back to work, and then 2023 had a writer strike and an actor strike.
Yeah.
And then now everyone is like, okay, now it's 2024, let's get back to work for real. And now you've got, you know, Paramount trying to sell to Skydance. You've got like downsizing, and no one's streaming business is working except for Netflix's, and like everyone's kind of like freaking out. And everyone's like, but this was supposed to be the year everything gets back to normal after 3-4 garbage years.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening.
Well, I hear a little bit of this, and I agree with it. COVID put a backlog on scripts and development slates and everything. So guys like Netflix, Apple TV, all those streaming platforms who were spending tons of money, lots of money, and the studios, the Paramounts, it started backlogging because everything was shut down. So they have these deals with the Scorseses and the Spielbergs of the world. And if you're Jonny McMahon, I've got this little script that was in development, dude, you're pushed back even more.
Yeah.
Like, forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're putting a lot of money to the Spielberg Scorsese stuff. And they started making those shows because they invested in them. So it's tougher for the guy who has the script that doesn't have a lot of producers credits or writing credits or something. You know, some of that stuff gets through. And that happened during COVID, and then the strikes happened and put another backlog. So momentum started going a little bit, and then backlog, because, you know, I've got some friends who had scripts in development, like things were going, and then that happened, and that just pushed them back further. And that's, you have to believe in your choices in this industry. Like, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to plug along, it's going to hit for me, I'm going to, you know, go for it. You know, for me, I wanted to learn as much as possible about the business, from knowing production equipment, mechanics, and editorial, and then being a production executive and doing production budgets and then producing. I wanted to be and then into distribution, I wanted to be an all-around good executive so that I could put my 2 cents into any department, even whether it was creative about a script or budgets on a project, or even distribution on that project. And then being on a set and then knowing about the equipment that's needed to do certain things and all that. So I just wanted to gain a lot of knowledge of the business as a whole so I could pivot too.
Yeah. Because that seems like a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you know, writers write, producers produce. I went the executive route because I'm not a writer. I never pretend to be.
It's almost like you became like a producing Swiss Army knife. Like,
yeah,
you could do, you had all the pieces. Yeah.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I think it's important to just know every aspect so that in case you need to pivot, because this industry changes so much.
Yeah,
it really does. And I just think you need to pivot sometimes.
Yeah. I ended up producing, directing, and hosting my own shows just because we didn't have anyone to help out. So it was just like, and it was just total like bare bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's been a great education.
But you're doing it, like, you're getting it done, and you're not putting, there's obstacles, but you're getting through those obstacles, right? And you're figuring it out. And I think that's
money solves all problems.
Yes, well, yes, money does solve all the problems, but when you don't have the money, what can you do? Who can you call? What equipment, friends, things in the industry that you can kind of grab some things to make it all happen. And there is this fortunate thing now of having places to have a voice or create a show and just post it. You've got Facebook, YouTube. You could do something and start posting it, and it might get seen. Yeah. You know, you never know. It starts getting those viral sensations. I think anybody, who says, I'm going to make this and it's going to go viral, is, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think you make something to make it go viral. I think you create something because you like it and you think everybody's going to enjoy it, and you hope it goes viral.
Yeah.
And hope it boosts you to the next level where an agent sees it or something like that. But, I think there are silos that you can try to create for yourself to build your brand, so to speak.
I think YouTube's really changing a lot because YouTube, I think last year, 2023, they paid out like $6.5 billion to creators in ad revenue share.
Yeah.
And obviously you got people like Mr. Beast who started, making videos in his backyard, and
Yeah.
now he's, making hundreds of millions of dollars a year just on YouTube alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he doesn't have to answer to anyone.
No, he does not. He definitely doesn't.
That's a good feeling.
He's his own brand. He makes those decisions, and they've paid dividends. He did it on his own, and he made those decisions, and it just grew and grew and grew. And no producer can come in and say, "Hey, you need to try to do it this way." It was like, I'm making over $100 million a year. Why do I need, it's all working.
Yeah.
So
keep your notes.
Yeah, exactly. Keep your notes, and you know where to put them. So yeah,
absolutely. So I mean, when you came out of university, you did the radio thing, which was cool. I think we kind of grew up in the same era. Like, do you remember how Howard Stern just totally changed radio?
Yeah.
And now he's like, his radio show is like a television show, basically.
Yeah. And which was a big jump for him, going into subscription radio, XM, radio. That was a jump for him, but he had already built that community, and it justified the jump, right?
So loyal.
Yeah. Well, money talks sometimes.
Did you ever go back into radio, or did you just stay in TV since then?
I just stayed in TV. So I jumped in TV, and production is where I wanted to be. It was producing and just being a production exec, doing budget. And I still do that. I mean, I still do that now. Everybody wants to know the numbers and the financials behind every project you work on and do. And, it's grown to that for sure. But, my job now, it's just everything I learned has helped me do what I do now.
How did you make this jump from making television here in this in this crazy town to then moving into making, I guess, content about sports, and maybe we can talk about the gamble, the poker stuff?
Yeah, sure. So in kind of 2000, I think it was 6, I was a production exec at Lifetime for a very short moment, because I got a phone call from a friend who had this digital network, and it was really before even YouTube. And we had a friend of mine was working for this new online platform called Ripe Digital, and I was like, I think that's the way to go, is like digital. TV's getting old. I think digital's the way to go. So this network, Ripe, had 3 online channels: Ripe TV, Octane TV, and Flow TV, which was rap and hip hop, and Octane TV was car enthusiasts. But we were creating, and I was running production. So our job was to create multiple short form videos monthly. And we were producing over 100 videos a month that would go onto on demand. And before, at that time, no one knew what on demand was. There was a little button on your clicker that said on demand. So we were funded by a bunch of VC funds and even some of the cable companies to create content to push on demand, so people would go on demand. So that was kind of the start of the on-demand OTT streaming business.
Yeah,
so
watch it when you want.
Yeah, exactly. You get to choose when you want to watch it.
Do you remember TV guides?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's not a lot of people I can have this conversation with.
I had friends who saved their TV guides, for sure. I mean, I haven't seen those guides in a while, but they used to, the TV guide was it. It was, where you found the listings of what was about to play that night and what time it was supposed to be on. It was crazy.
That was the only way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember coming home from school on Thursdays for NBC Thursdays.
Yeah.
I remember watching, and they had it. It was great.
Be there.
Yeah. Be there.
Be there.
Yeah.
The guy who my dad knew was this guy, Steve Somer, and he coined that phrase. He was like the communications guy at NBC.
Yeah.
Be there. And so I'd play golf with him, and anytime you did a putt and it would go in the hole, he'd go, be there. So it's like he used that term all the time. So
that's hilarious. But I know, I remember because it was like Friends and then Seinfeld back to back.
Yeah,
for like a decade.
Seinfeld, ER. Yeah, it was Friends, Seinfeld, ER, and like Caroline in the City, I think, a couple other shows. But yeah,
back in the day.
Back in the day. So the good old days.
Now it's all dragons and game shows.
Yeah. I just started watching the Dragon, Game of Thrones Dragon last night.
Yeah, so. the House of Dragons, the new one.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. The first incarnation of that, the Game of Thrones, that first 8 seasons is pretty spectacular.
It really is. It really is. And this, at the second part of House of Dragons, so long, we had to watch the recap, and we're like, what?
I had to watch the whole first season.
We were thinking that. Because it's been so long.
But the quality's not there. This is total aside from your total aside from your career. But I just felt like where Game of Thrones left off with season 8, with the producers and the quality of the directors and the quality of the lighting and the quality of the camera operators and the movement of everything, and it was just at such a high level. Then it seems like they got rid of all those people who worked on Game of Thrones, and then they brought in a whole bunch of new people to do House of Dragons, and they're finding their way.
Yeah.
And those first 2 episodes were just not there.
Maybe it's budget cuts.
Yeah, you never know, right? I mean, come on. But the lighting was bad. The costumes weren't even close to as good as, where they were before. But that's just me being, a consumer of content.
Yeah, sure.
So back to the early days of streaming on demand.
Yeah, so on demand, and then I went to after that we got bought out or whatever and moved on. But I ran digital TV production for Endemol USA that did Deal or No Deal, Wipeout, those shows. Amazingly enough, they didn't own any of the digital rights to those shows. So what we would do was create just original program. We came up with ideas. So we did a show called MLB Fan Cave, which put 2 super fans in New York City in a fan cave, and they watch sports, all baseball games, every game all day long. But we'd also bring in bands and talent, and kind of it was that immersive experience of trying to get the objective from MLB was to get a younger baseball fan. Because the average baseball fan, probably even now, I think it's maybe 48 years old.
Yeah,
they wanted the 18 to 25-year-old.
Do kids still buy baseball cards anymore? That's how I got into baseball, like trading cards. Yeah, I had the trading cards. Yeah,
baseball card. I'm sorry that I don't have TV guides, but I do still have my baseball cards.
I still have my baseball cards too.
I just have. My wife's like, "Why do you have these? They're sitting in the garage." But I was like, just keep them.
I had that. I have hockey cards too.
I don't. I have some NFL cards. I have like Lyle Alzado, Cleveland Browns. Before he came to the Raiders, I got some pretty good NFL cards.
Yeah.
Where were we?
Streaming. Yeah. MLB wanted a younger audience.
Yeah, MLB. And we achieved that. We started getting MLB content onto YouTube, and they were so hesitant of doing that, but it was just the start of that motion. We did a show called Married on MySpace, where a couple's getting married, and the MySpace audience got to choose the wedding, the where they got married, the cake, the tux, the wedding dress, everything like that. So we did all, and they're all funded by brands. So it was all brand funded integration. We put that on at that time Crackle, which was owned by Sony, or Yahoo TV, a bunch of those younger players, or MySpace, and create content. And then after that, I worked for another startup, didn't go anywhere, and then I spent 9 years at World Poker Tour, running production. So friend told me they were looking for executive to help run the production, get budgets into in order, and work with the CEO and just do this worldwide tour. That was televised, and so I jumped into that.
That really took off. I remember when people were like, "Oh, we're watching poker tonight," and I'm like, "What do you mean you're watching poker? Like, is that a thing?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, absolutely."
Well, it's funny because it's really sticky. And even before I started World Poker Tour, I'd just be flipping through the channels like a dude does, and then I'd stop and I'd just start watching poker. It's sticky for some reason. You just start watching it. You don't know why, but I guess because money's changing hands and you get to see the cards and the graphics come up with the cards and everything, and just and you're not sure this guy's like keeps betting and betting, and he's going to bust because you see the hand he's everybody's got.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like breaking the fourth wall, because it's like this guy's got sunglasses on, and you got the little cameras on the table, so when when they sees the cards, you can see what he's holding. Yeah. It's almost like you're watching a behind the scenes poker match, and you know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And that World Poker Tour started that whole cam. Yeah. That look. It was it was great to do it, because that experience of helping run the TV side of the tour, of shooting in places like Paris or London, or in the Caribbean or down in Uruguay, and coordinating that, of utilizing everything, even like the production coordinator mind of like, okay, we need to get this lighting kit here and the trucks here, and then the trucks would all go through the US. And yes, I had great smart people helping and incredible producers, and I really didn't touch or Poker Tour has a producer, executive producer there, who she works on all the content, and she tells the story of the players. I'm not going to go in there and
mess with that.
It was a working operation, and of course, like, I'd help out with some sizzle reels, or put my input on certain things, but my job at Poker Tour was to keep the production staff moving forward, try to keep with the budgets, and just manage the staff and keep everybody getting the episodes done for the season.
How hard was that, running an international production from LA? Like, just having these people and working with all these foreign crews all over the world to try to get like the same look, the same lighting. Because the thing is, like, I know what this is. Like, the lights in those casinos and everything are different in every country, right? So then you got to bring in your own lighting rig. You got to make sure it's the same, warmth. Everything has to look the same, so that when you cut between all those different countries and all those different tables and all those that the lighting's the same, that the camera quality is the same. That's got to be tough.
And some places, like in Paris, we couldn't have our normal set with the truss and the lights and the big table and the wide floor and everything like that. It was literally like a little room, and we had cameras in hallways shooting into this room that could barely hold 6 players at a table.
And then Dana White's taking up 3 seats.
But it was Paris, so it was an old building, and so the look of it looked cool. But we, Poker Tour, we made sure we kept the department heads on all the shows. So the lighting director was always with us. The set designer was always with us in all the locations, and then a couple camera guys, and definitely the director. So we could keep the same vibe and feel, and they knew what to do. But yes, to help on costs, we'd hire local crews, local production service companies to bring in equipment, use their cameras, use some of their crew to shoot. And, those were challenges. But as the guy who ran the budget, it's like, no, we can only bring that core group. We can't bring all 5 camera guys. We can bring the director and this one camera guy, or maybe 2, and we had to hire these 2 other guys. It's just, we got to hire local for some of these bodies. And they that's the job of the production executive working with the producer, just come to a happy medium and the director, happy medium of just make it work.
And how hard is that, though? Like, I don't think people really understand when they watch something like the World Poker Tour or something like that, where just having that same look, the same camera quality across all those different locations all around the world. Having 10 episodes, all look the same, all feel the same. That is such heavy lifting.
But post-production can be magical at times too. Post-production definitely helps. And also at World Poker Tour, those tournaments, the final table day, there would be 250 plus hands. So from that one event, we produce 3 to 4 episodes, 1-hour episodes from it. we'd only take the best hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the hands are like, they throw it in and, so it, bet and then, fold, bet, fold. And those are boring hands, but the producers were great at finding the best hands. And then the chatter between players, like if they were talking smack to each other, of course, you'd have to use that stuff too. So, again, that goes to the creative side. I was the business side of Poker Tour and the budget side of Poker Tour, and the handling of crew and different heads and different, people who had, opinions. So, you just try to be a good mediator in that respect. And fortunately, while I was at Poker Tour, my boss gave me the opportunity to head up the distribution too for World Poker Tour. So
what was that like? Like, how many countries did you guys air in?
Well, at that time, we were owned by a company called Party Poker, which was a real money gaming company. And then Party Poker sold us to another company. And so we used to produce content that was branded by Party Poker in certain territories in Europe because it was okay to do that. So Italy and France and UK, Eastern Europe and all that. And so when we weren't with Party Poker anymore, I was still a production guy, but I took on the distribution. I went to all the networks that were airing World Poker Tour. I was like, you have to pay us now. We're not giving it to you for free. So out of the handful of countries we were airing in, we lost 2 countries, which was fine. But then I started traveling to the TV sales, MIPCOM, MIPTV.
In Cannes and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, in Cannes and Sport Monaco. And so I started meeting more countries who had networks and trying to sell. And poker's hard to sell because it's in a lot of places it's gambling, and the East, Saudi Arabia or Middle East is not going to take poker, so that's off the table. But there are more countries in France, in Europe that took it, it grew on the linear side more. We were selling, and that was great. But then all this company called Pluto TV came up, and so in 2017, World Poker Tour, I got a call from a friend who was consulting for Pluto, and he said, "Hey, I've got the streaming platform. It looks like a TV guide. You just click it and starts playing your channel, and you're your own channel."
Game changer.
Yeah. And so we were one of the first to launch with them, and it just became a multi-million-dollar business for World Poker Tour.
Amazing.
It made a lot of money. It still continues to make money. We started getting on Samsung and Tubi, and by the time I left, and this was 2 years ago, by a little over 2 years ago, by the time I left, I think we're on 48 streaming platforms.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So we just jumped in that game really, really aggressively.
Well, you had the backlog of content, right? That's the key. That's the key.
Yeah. Right there, which, thank you for mentioning it, is that World Poker Tour had a library of content that was not doing anything. I mean, I couldn't sell season 8 in 2017, but I put it on Pluto. It's like, holy shit, it's monetizing. Like these archives of library of the over 400 plus hours of World Poker Tour. And then it gets back to what we were saying of it being sticky, that you're flipping through channels, you just start watching it. When I was at Poker Tour, on some of the streaming platforms, it was the number one watched sports vertical was World Poker Tour.
That's amazing.
I don't know what it is now. There's a lot more stuff up there now. Formula One just launched on Pluto.
Which is huge because of the Netflix series.
Yeah, it's big. And for the U.S., that Drive to Survive really gained a lot of fandom for F1.
Miami, Austin, and Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. So, the streaming platforms aren't going to go away. The way to make money might change a little in terms of contracts and everything. And the streaming platforms are getting more picky too.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everybody wants it. advertising rev share. It's you load it up and it just starts monetizing. Now, there's stuff that doesn't monetize as well as World Poker Tour, and that's like the holy grail of streaming. And I think now, probably nowadays, with some of the content that's competitive against Poker Tour, but it could be anything. I mean, it could be, I know Carson's Late Night's on there and does really well. Like nostalgic TV on these streaming platforms is doing well too. And think of that's old library. Like you've got this new way of making money for your company, which is a huge conglomerate. But
well, this is the thing. Like, so I'm sitting down last night watching some YouTube, and I hit on Letterman, and of course Letterman's company Worldwide Pants owned all of the content from the late night show.
Yep.
And I was watching this clip, and it was him and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, and they were on Letterman together, and because I was probably watching some documentary about the Celtics or something like that. Bill Russell, yeah. And then that popped up, and then I was like, it had a couple million views on it, but it was only 4 months old, and I'm like, holy shit! Like Letterman is now finally getting his content library onto YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's got like 30 years of interviews and conversations, and they're just putting up 5, 6, 7, 8-minute clips of all these iconic people and iconic moments, and he owns all of it, and he's just cashing in. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. It's Late Show Tom Snyder as well.
Yeah.
So it's funny he hasn't done it yet. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's Letterman and he'll do what he wants. But he's dipping the toe in the water with YouTube. I'm sure all the Plutos and Samsungs and everything are probably even offering him money to get that content up, because in a way it is pretty evergreen. I mean, it's two talking heads and it's fun, and some of that's kind of history too.
Yeah.
Right.
And when Drew Barrymore went topless.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know. So, I think people will watch it. I think people would go back to watch that for sure.
Yeah, no, it's iconic and timeless. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It's lovely. It's lovely to see people being able to monetize those back catalogs now with all the digital opportunities that exist out there, and all.
Yeah,
because that's. If can you imagine if you're in a position where you can use your back catalog to fund future development?
Yeah. And when we were kids, they put I Love Lucy's on DVD. Remember when you just see commercials on television like buy the 12-pack?
Yeah.
I Love Lucy. So this is that new realm, of content strategy, so to speak.
Well, I kind of spent my young adult life in China, and we had all the fake DVDs. Oh, that was a big issue. So I could go in and get.
It goes back to Seinfeld and Kramer with his friend filming the movie, and then Jerry has to. Yeah.
Jerry takes on the directing.
Yeah,
this is terrible. But I remember going in and buying like what was big back when I was doing that. The Lord of the Rings stuff. You could go in and buy like a Lord of the Rings 3-pack, and it's all dodgy DVDs, and you had it'd be like $1 each.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see them in the theaters, and you couldn't buy the actual DVDs. So this was like all that was there. And there's rumors that the Chinese military was behind the fake DVD business, and it was making billions of dollars a year, obviously.
Probably. Are we going to get trouble for talking about China?
I lived there for 18 years. If I'm blacklisted, it's already been done.
Okay, all right.
I have been arrested or detained in almost every province in China while working as a photographer or journalist at some stage. Yeah.
Well, I could see that.
Well, it's so cat and mouse, right?
Yeah.
And they that's the way they try to intimidate you. So you have this small town in this small province that's doing something that no one wants them to know, but it's hurting people's health.
Yeah.
And then you go in there and bust the story wide open, and you ruin that little fiefdom corruption ring that they had, and the local government's always involved. And then Beijing finds out because it's on the fucking front page of the New York Times, so everyone gets upset, and then China looks like they can't control.
Was there nervousness on your side about that when you did
I loved it.
Yeah, because it's kind of adventurous, right? Well, you're adventurous, so like I could see it. Like it's not.
It was interesting. Like, I think journalism today is not what journalism was 20 years ago, and I got into it because I loved telling stories. So I love traveling and I love telling stories. I wasn't like a hardcore journalist, but I was quite good with my photography, and I loved making, taking moments and making them visually appealing. And I loved going with the journalists, because when I worked with the New York Times, I got to work with people like David Barboza, Howard French, and these guys, were long time New York Times guys. So we would go out together, and they would have great stories. You'd have drinks at night, go out for dinner, and then the next day you'd have to, go and find out exactly what was going on. I loved just watching them put the pieces of the puzzle together and come out with these beautiful stories. And I got to be there and watch it all unfold. And then my work got to accompany their work. And it was the best way to be in China, because I went to China when I was 22, not knowing anything. And then I wanted to learn as much about the country as possible. And that was kind of like my new adventure. So I played sports when I was a kid, and I played Division I basketball all the way up until I finished college, and I wasn't good enough to play pro. So I was like lost, totally depressed, watching guys like, watching guys like Kobe Bryant go pro at 18.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know. So I just was like, I'm going to China, and I'm just, whatever happens, I'm going to figure it out there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it was wild, and I loved it. But the atrocities we saw, and the kind of stuff that was going on, and the kind of stuff that people were turning a blind eye to, was just ridiculous.
Were you there during the Tiananmen?
No. That was 89. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to China in 2001.
Okay.
And then I was there till like 2018, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I did COVID in Dubai. And then now I'm here.
See that COVID in Dubai, was that okay?
COVID in Dubai was okay. So what happened was I left China, and I moved to Dubai, because actually Dubai is amazing. If you travel 300 days a year, globally, Dubai is probably the best place in the world to live.
Okay.
Because there's not much of like a fabric of a community there.
Sure.
It's more of just like, it's kind of like Las Vegas. Like, people go there just to like have a great weekend and then leave.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to be there like all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're filming 2 weeks in Mongolia and you come back to Dubai for 3-4 days, you want to rest, go to the gym, sit by the pool, and then you got to go to Taipei for an event, and then back to Dubai for a few more days, and then you're 2 weeks in Ethiopia filming, which was my life for a long time. It's perfect.
Were they locked down as much as they were in the States, or definitely not China? I mean, China
was insane.
Down was horrible, but
so this is what happened to me. So in January 2020, I was lining up all this work in Saudi Arabia. So the Saudi Arabia tourism people, I was in touch with them a lot. They're like, we love your adventure shows. We want to show Saudi Arabia, come and do a Tough Rides motorcycle series, come and do an Extreme Trek series, like, we want to show that Saudi Arabia is open and fun. And I'm like, well, Saudi Arabia has a very mixed reputation around the globe for things that may or may not have happened in various places, like Turkey, Istanbul. And so it was a little bit hard, but then I was like, well, look, like, I'm going to do it because I want to know what's going on. So I'm a big, and this is from the New York Times days, like, I'm a big boots on the ground guy. Like, if I'm going to learn about something, I'm going to learn about it firsthand, and I'm going to do it. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So December 2023 or 2019, then January 2020, I had all this business lined up in Saudi Arabia. And then they started dragging their feet because, like, something's going on in China. And then it was like, something's going on in Italy.
Yeah.
And then in February, I was in Myanmar filming. February 2020, I was doing this episode of Extreme Treks in Myanmar. And they were on the brink of a civil war, and we almost didn't go.
Wow.
And then we went to Bagan, and then we filmed all through the Chin Hills, which was beautiful. And then like a week after we left, COVID like shut down the Bangkok airport, which is where we flew through to get to Myanmar. And then most of Asia started to close. And then we got back to Dubai, and then we're like, okay, like, the world is probably, something bad's happening, right? And we're like, let's just go to Africa, because Africa will be fine. Like African people fucking wake up and go to work every day, no matter what. Like, they're not going to deal with any of this bullshit. And that's a compliment to the African nation and the African continent.
Yeah.
Of which there are more than 60 countries. But we just thought, like, whatever happens, we'll be able to find amazing stuff in Africa, like Namibia, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Somalia. Like I had a list of things we could do.
Yeah.
So I was like, we could just spend a year traveling around Africa making stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went to Ethiopia in March, and we land in Addis Ababa, and then we start to see like more countries in Asia closing, and then the Saudi government writes me an email, like the tourism people, and they're like, we're pushing all this stuff to maybe like a few months from now, and then summer, so like Q4 probably. And I was like, fuck. So then we went up to the Simeon Hills in Ethiopia, which is on the border with South Sudan, and it's a beautiful national park. It's probably one of the most pretty places I've ever been, and we filmed it. And so we were doing this like 10-day trek through the Simeon National Park, and we were down in a valley, and we were offline for like 2-3 days. We got up to the top of this mountain, and the guide had some tea ready for us. And he's like, guys, we have a signal here. You can check your phone and whatever. And then my phone blew up. It was like March 17th or something.
Yeah. Like really everything was filling the pot at that time.
And then Dubai closed their borders to residents. So I was a legal resident. I had like a green card. And I was a property owner and a business owner in the UAE. But they closed their borders, Emirates passport holders only. So then I'm sitting in the Simeon Mountains, and I'm getting, and I'm like, I think the world is closing around us, and we can't go back to Dubai, like where I was living. And then I was like, okay, production's done. First of all, like production's fucking done. So my guy, I was like, so my guide, you'll love this as a production guy, you'll love this. So I got my guide who was with us because we had a signal. I got him to call a driver, and I was like, where's the nearest fucking road? Like, because we're in the middle of nowhere, right? And he's like, okay, there's a road. It's probably 8 or 10 hours hike if we move quickly. And it was already like noon, right? Or late morning. I was like, okay, like call the driver, tell him we're fucking getting there now. Like production's done. I was like, guys, put the cameras away, take them apart. Like we did a little piece to camera being like, the world's just fucking closed, by the way. But then we were like, okay, we got to get to the road. Got to the road, drove all the way back to Addis Ababa. So the whole time, there's this website called like the ITIA. It's like the International Travel Aviation something.
Yeah.
And my camera guys and I, the whole time, the whole like 20-hour drive straight back to Addis Ababa, we were just watching the world close. Like, where can we fly to? Where can we? And it was just closed. And we're like, we're going to get stuck in Ethiopia for months.
Yeah.
And that was terrifying. So then my camera guy, he was from Canada. So he's like, and he was living in Bali.
Okay.
Because we were traveling so much, we could kind of live wherever we wanted. So he was living in Bali, and then he would fly to meet me when we filmed everywhere. And then I was in Dubai. But then Indonesia closed their borders. So he couldn't go back to Dubai. He had like a girlfriend, he had a motorcycle, he was renting an apartment, like all gone. So he's like, fuck, I have to go home. So he went back to Canada. So he flew from Addis Ababa back to Canada because he had a Canadian passport. I could have gone back to Canada too, but I didn't want to like I don't have anything in Canada. Like I didn't want to like live in my brother's basement for like 6 months while this blew over. So one of the only country, it got to the point where I got to the airport and I could only fly to either Canada or Turkey.
So you chose Turkey.
So I went to Istanbul. Yeah. And then the day I got into Istanbul, March 19th, I landed at 7 a.m. overnight flight from Addis Ababa on Turkish Airways. The day I landed at 7 a.m. and Turkey closed their international borders same day, 5 p.m.
Wow.
And then I was there for 4.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like it? I mean, if you were going to be somewhere, you made it through, it was fine. Yeah.
When I was there, I hated it because it wasn't where I was supposed to be, and I was supposed to be working.
Yeah.
But when I look back on it now, it was such a peaceful, relaxing time. But I wasn't working, and my career was going up in flames because. But
that's bad.
Yeah. You'll love this though, because the whole time I was in Turkey for 4 months, I was planning. I was like, okay, this is like a flu. Okay, I got that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a virologist, but if it's like a flu, by summer, this will be done.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, well, I'm in Istanbul. So where can I get to easily? Okay, Europe. Okay, great. So I was done with Africa. That didn't work out. So I was like, so the whole time I was in Istanbul, I was like, okay, if I can get my camera guy back from Canada, my DOP, Chad, I can get him out of Canada and I can get him into Switzerland, because Switzerland was allowing people from Canada in, but not everywhere.
Okay.
So this is where you had to play the Europe game. So Europe, as a block, you could travel freely internally. But as separate countries, they had their own immigration policies for various countries depending on their COVID levels and their vaccine levels. So I was like, okay, China, like Switzerland and Canada seem to be kind of operating on the same page. I think I can get my guy into Zurich, and then I can fly into some country in Europe that will allow people from Turkey, because that was hard because Turkey didn't lock down and everyone was saying, we're blocking everyone from Turkey. But I eventually got into Slovenia, and then I rented a car and drove to Switzerland. So then we were all in Switzerland, and we did a deal to walk across Switzerland with the tourism people. We made a double episode, which was great. And then I was like, okay, now I got my team back. We're in Europe. And then we filmed in Germany. We filmed in Poland. We filmed in Malta. We filmed in Croatia, Montenegro, all basically traveling by land or by boat without flying because the airports were a mess. And this was summer 2020. And then we got to Montenegro in November. So we filmed July, August, September, October, November during COVID and made some beautiful shows.
You pivoted.
Well, we had to, yeah. But then we got to Montenegro in November, and holy shit, like, okay, so Montenegro has a land border with Croatia.
Yeah.
Okay, they closed that. Okay, Montenegro has a land border with Serbia. They closed that. Okay, Lufthansa, Air France, British Airways, everyone stopped flying to Montenegro. So I was like, well, we're going to get stuck in Montenegro now for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we finished filming in Montenegro, and the airport was closed. There was no way out of the country. And then I was like, fuck. So I was like, okay, what do we got in the bank account? Okay, private jet back to Dubai. So I got my whole crew. By this time, there were 5 or 6 of us, and my mom was with us, which is another story altogether. But we ended up getting out of Montenegro on a private jet back to Dubai, and then we had another lockdown globally in November 2020, and then that went on to 21, and then it was just like, and that second lockdown was the one that broke my back, because then we couldn't really get back into production, and all of our funding avenues drew it up, and then it was just like sitting around for 2.5 years after that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was a wild one. That's crazy. I mean, that's a book, or if you were filming that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you were filming, but like your escapade behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Sounds like its own story.
Yeah.
Too.
It was wild. I mean, it would be great to make a script out of it and turn it into a film someday, because the stuff that happened to us on that trip, trying to get back to filming in 2020, was unbelievable. And we had great partners. Everyone wanted to, like the tourism bureaus we were working with, our corporate partners, they were all like, this is going to blow over. You're doing great stuff. Yeah. Like, we're super excited you're here. And then, like, no one was expecting another lockdown. Yeah. And then it wouldn't stop. And then it was like, and then Montenegro did have no one flew in and out of Montenegro for months on anything other than private jets, because they just closed down the airport, and that was it. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, when I was during that time of COVID, actually, World Poker Tour, because of the stream, because we were on a lot of these streaming platforms and everybody was home, that's why we started just.
Yeah.
So taking a bad thing on the positive side from the company I was working for at that time, the World Poker Tour, and we get calls from networks because we were finishing up episodes and we had all this library too. So we, CBS wanted World Poker Tour, networks that never aired us before wanted it, just on a linear standpoint too.
Yeah.
And so it was just fresh content because nothing was being filmed.
Yeah.
So for us, a total negative everything that happened, but that was the positive. My wife is a nurse, and she was dealing with that in Santa Monica. So they're like, that was, as a family, kids came home from college and we didn't know what was going on, but, my wife would just get home from work and we'd just cross our fingers that she wasn't bringing anything, that whatever this was. And, we just made it all work. But actually, from a family standpoint, we cooked a lot. We made great recipes. I was working. My wife was unfortunately working in the healthcare, as a nurse, but in surgery. So that was tough on her side, but, the 4 of us were together, and it was actually nice.
Yeah. It's amazing, like, how frustrating it was in the moment, maybe, but now looking back on it, it's like, okay, that was a nice little pause, but it, it would have been nice if it was like a pause and, you could still make money.
It depends who you talk to on that enjoying that pause. But
Well,
yes.
it was strange because for me, I make television. I have corporate partners and tourism partners come together, make television. I sell it onwards, and then I do speaking events.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do anything. And then so I was just like, when I was in Istanbul for 4 months, I was losing my fucking mind. And then when I got back to Dubai in November 2020 over the second lockdown, I was just like, there's nothing to do, man. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I study law? Like, there's always a need for lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. There's doctors, lawyers, accountants,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So that was a pretty big tangent. Thanks for staying with me on that.
It's all good. Yeah.
So when did you end up leaving World Poker Tour?
Almost a little over 2 years ago now. I felt like I had gotten to as far as I could go with the company. The company had sold to another group about, I don't know, 8 months or a year before that. And so I got a call from a friend of mine, Kerry Glotzer, who runs a company called Tupelo Honey Media. And Tupelo is one of the largest sports production broadcast companies and for production services. So they do the New York Giants and NFL teams and NBA teams and everything. And they had invested, along with their owner, Gray Television, into World Chase Tag in 2019.
What's that?
So World Chase Tag is the only professional sport of tag in the world.
Like children's tag.
Yeah. So it's the game of tag. Everybody can relate to it. Basically what it does is it's a 12 meter by 12 meter obstacle course, and we call that the quad. And 2 teams show up for a match, and there's a chaser starts on a platform, and then there's the evader within the quad, the obstacle course. And the chaser has 20 seconds to tag the evader. The evader evades, he or she gets a point for their team. If the chaser tags the evader comes off, and the chaser now becomes the evader, and the other team comes on. So it's 14 chases in a match. It's usually like a hockey score, 2-1 or 4-5, because it's easier to chase and tag somebody than it is to evade. So, it's like a chess game, and it's really fun, and it brings together athletes from parkour, ninja warrior, free running. A lot of our athletes are stuntmen and women, or parkour athletes, or ninja warrior champions. If you've seen some of the DC comic movies and all of that, Avengers and everything, a lot of our athletes are, the chase scenes, all the running scenes, those are some of our athletes doing that. One of our athletes just won an Emmy for Mandalorian for best stunts.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So, and one of the founders of parkour, Sebastian Foucan, out of France, he was in the James Bond Casino Royale opening, where James is chasing this guy through this construction site.
One of the best openings ever.
That's Sebastian.
Oh, wow.
And so Sebastian actually participates in World Chase Tag too.
Oh, wow.
And he's the founder of parkour. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with parkour, but it's those guys you see jump from building to building, or will be in a park and do all these kind of crazy jumps and dives, and it's an art form. And the founders, Christian and Damien DeVoe, who are based in the UK, they founded this back in 2015, 2014, where Christian is playing tag with his son in the garden, and they started putting obstacles up while they were chasing each other playing tag. And so Christian started devising this idea, and his brother came on, and they built this quad. And actually the course, we sell the course and license the course to gyms around the world. So athletes can train, but also gym owners can use them as exercise or do after school programs for kids, everything, whatever they want to do. So we license that, and it expands our reach and the expansion of the sport too. So we were just in France in April, and we did our world championship, and we had teams from China, Japan, US, UK, Brazil, Switzerland, Sweden, Israel, Morocco, and France.
And it's like a tournament format,
It's
like
a 3-day
knockout.
Yeah, it was a 3-day event. It's a knockout event. There's a prize pool. We had a women's championship and a men's championship. And we were just outside of Paris in this city called Evry. And Evry is where parkour was founded. So it was great. And the city invited us there because they just built a new arena. And we got a lot of, special savings and everything from the production standpoint. That was great.
Tax credit.
Yeah, pretty much kind of like in that respect. A lot of incentives. And it was great. It was our best event to date. And so it's a fringe sport like pickleball or cornhole that are growing, and they're not the big four like NHL, NBA, and NFL and so on. And so it's entrepreneurial, I would say, of trying to. And so I was brought in to help grow the sport and work with the founders. And we were airing on ESPN originally. Now we're airing in over 38 territories around the world and growing. We're getting on some of the OTT platforms as well and streaming, and getting sponsors on board and everything. So it's just now I'm kind of on the entrepreneurial side, using all my knowledge and lessons and contacts to try to grow a sport that I truly believe in. I mean, I think I'm lucky to be part of it. I think it's fun. It's exciting. It's different. That's why I jumped into it. Like, we're not a startup anymore. I think we've solidified ourselves as a legitimate sport with Olympic aspirations. And I think we'll get there. I think, I'm really excited about it.
That's incredible.
But everybody can relate to it. It's a game of tag. I think it extends our demographic from kids who want to watch it, because the parents aren't going to take a 5-year-old, and maybe they will, to a UFC championship combat sport, but they'll take their kid to go watch World Chase Tag. So I see our demographic as wide. I see our opportunity of growing the teens and tweens in chase tag, that they could become future athletes. And we want to get into sports betting with it as well and grow that side of it, because it's 20-second chases. It's basically, I'm going to put $5 down because I think that guy's going to tag that guy.
Yeah.
So
in every college dorm room across America.
Exactly. So I think we've got a lot of opportunity for the sport, and there's no other competitor in it so far. And because we do sell these quads around the world and have the trademark to the rules and trademark to the name and everything, I think it would be hard for somebody to come in, but you never know.
So it's a two-prong attack. So you've got like a live event, so you've got a live audience, and then you're also doing the filming, which
we sell tickets and we have merch.
Oh yeah,
it's, and then we cut we cut into hour-long episodes. And right now we're in the US, we're in syndication like a talk show. So we hit 160 million households. We're in 92% of this TV syndication marketplace.
Wow.
So like the Kelly Clarkson show, that's TV syndication. We're in the same boat as her. I think she's 100%, but we're 92%.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. We're airing on Rogers Sports Network in Canada.
Oh, good. Yeah. Canadian show.
Yeah, every Monday in Canada after WWE Raw. So it's exciting. We're just expanding and grow. And I liked jumping into the unknown and being entrepreneurial and trying to give it a go and feeling like, wow, I was on the boots on the, like I was, there's only about 5 of us within the company. Like I'm one of the 5 who started this.
Mm-hmm.
And, fingers crossed, I hope it succeeds.
Yeah. That's amazing. How important are the personalities and the competitors? Like, how much do you play them up?
Yeah, we need to do a better job. Our investment has been primarily in events. In last March, we were at Arnold Schwarzenegger's Sports Festival, which was great. And Arnold showed up for the final, so we got him on camera, and we were there for 3 days. And during the festival, we had bleachers that held over almost 600 people, and those bleachers were completely filled. Every match that was happening, those bleachers were filled. And so that was great. And then we were at TwitchCon in Paris for the French National last July. And that was fantastic too. But the athletes themselves, the next round for us, or the next step for us, is to really highlight the teams and the athletes, because they have stories like that, like winning an Emmy or getting chased by James Bond around a construction site in a famous chase scene. So we need to do a better job of highlighting our athletes and growing them, because if we grow them and their social following, everything, or help in that, it helps the growth of our sport, and it helps people follow them and get fans engaged.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like Drive to Survive, right? Like, the cars go around the track, people are chasing each other in the quad, but what's their normal life like? Do they have a crazy girlfriend or husband? And really like build them up as characters.
Yeah. No, and I think we can get there. And two of the French teams got a little scuffle during the championship, and unfortunately, we didn't have a camera on them. But that's great. That's great TV.
Yeah.
Right. So, look, we're in steps of building our sport. Our social media has grown from 2 years ago to 1.5. Now we have over 5 million followers on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So the growth is there. People are following us and they're watching our content. So that's a huge plus. And we're lining up our next round of events, hopefully with the U.S. Championship starting November, and then the World Championship will end. First, this will be season 7. Will end next December.
Do you have any events here in LA?
No. We're locking down, presumably Atlanta.
Okay.
Hopefully, but we do have a quad up in San Bernardino. We have a quad near Sacramento, and those are facilities where people train, and the people who own those quads use them as part of their membership program to do chase tag events.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm actually surprised you got as much linear exposure on this as you just mentioned. Like I would have thought, like, 30 million followers on YouTube or something, and you're actually able to monetize that with sponsors and things like that. Like it's amazing how many linear options there are now, and also how many digital options there are, and how these like niche sports are being able to like find an audience.
Yeah, and we were very fortunate and lucky to be on ESPN for a few years, and that was wonderful. I think a little bit of my frustration on it, and I'm free to say, is that we weren't on we weren't on all the time. And so taking this syndication tactic gave us the opportunity to air every week. We air every weekend, usually on a Sunday, on all these stations around the country now, like NBC Sports Regional, all the Gray stations, Nexstar stations, CW stations. So we're airing consistently every weekend, so people see us, whereas ESPN, we're airing more infrequently. And so I think for us, growing the sport and getting more eyeballs and getting more people to see it was a positive for us, because probably when I started, it was more people were like, "Hey, what are you up to?" "I'm working for World Chase Tech." "Well, what's that?" And now I say, it's like, I've seen that.
Oh, well, that's cool.
So I think it's helped across the board, and distribution's key, content's key, social, building your social presence, your brand, the sport, legitimizing the sport. I mean, because I could see people saying it's a game of tag. Like, what the hell?
With some of the fittest people on the planet.
You see these guys, I get chewed up if these guys were chasing me on that quad. I mean, once you see it and you see how they throw their bodies around and fit through bars that are 4 inches and dive and leap and juke and everything like that, it's legitimate. I mean, these guys put their bodies out. They're not wearing helmets. Some of them have padding, but they, there are few injuries here and there, but there's more injuries in NFL football every game than our athletes have. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it seems like such a such an obvious thing, but such a like a just a I wouldn't say random, but it's amazing that the founders and yourself have built this into what it is.
I mean, look, I've been with the team for 2 years, but there was some legwork before that, and they did an incredible job, and we've done a better job together just building it and growing it in the last 2 years. But that it takes a team to do it, and everybody has ideas of expansion and everything like that. And so we're getting there. That World Championship was just a game changer for us. It was just fantastic. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing, and having teams from all over the world is installing audiences also all over the world, right? And again, once these characters start to really get fleshed out, and they get, and they'll have millions of people following them, and then all their followers will be tuning in.
Yeah, and we had it live, and now we're cutting the episodes into 14 hours, and we own and control that real estate. It'll be in syndication starting August 31st, but I'll throw it on YouTube, on Tubi, Fubo Sports we're on, and Pluto internationally right now. But then it'll be on Rogers Sports Network, your brotherhood up there.
My brother can watch it.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah.
That's amazing. You have any like other side projects going on, or is this like taking up your whole life?
This is it.
Yeah.
It's 24/7. You kind of sleep, eat, and breathe it, because you wanted to be successful. And I had a comfortable job at Poker Tour. It was great. It was good. Could have kept it going. I just kind of wanted something new and fresh to jump into, and this opportunity came about, and the group that hired me, Kyria Tupelo, and the people at Gray Television, it's good. It's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge for sure.
Well, sitting on my side of the table after just having a great conversation with you, like it seems like such a great time to be entrepreneurial for you, like because it's like you've done everything, right? And you've built the Rolodex.
Yeah.
You've PA'd, you've production coordinated, you've produced, you've done television, you've been through every part of the system. And then now you get to call all your friends that you worked with back then and be like, hey guys, I'm doing something new.
Yeah. That's it. That's exactly it. And the Rolodex of context you have, poker blurred the line of sports and entertainment. So I knew all these sports networks and agents and agencies and everything. So it's helped to talk to those guys, get their input. Like, what do you think? Or, hey, why don't you look into this or that, or talk to this person, this person. So it's been amazing. And that's part of the fun of it, that, you're trying something new and you can still go back to your contacts and guys you've had a beer with, or, and try to utilize them for business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a business that you're growing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. I saw. I mean, I followed up a little bit, but I didn't necessarily put all the pieces together with the world.
Well, I try to be quiet in my background and everything, but every day's new, and you jump into things and take challenges on, and I think you only live once, kind of thing.
Yeah, you got to let it roll.
Yeah, exactly.
So, where do you see yourself kind of in the next 6 to 12 months with this business, or with your personal development?
I mean, I'm excited my kids from personal development, I'm excited my kids have jobs. But I think I'm just going to be happy that we continue the growth of the sport, because it's just not going to stop in 6 or 12 months. It's like, how can we climb, more events, more tournaments, more ideas? How do we grow our fandom? How do we utilize these athletes in better ways? Everything like that. So, I mean, this is a 5-year, I can see this sport in 5 years just growing and executing well, and being in countries, and being in Africa, and we're doing some really cool expansion in China right now. But I think it's got legs as a sport because it's just the game of tag and an obstacle course that everybody can understand to play. I would say that you could be somewhere in a room with 100 people and say how many people have thrown in a football, and a lot of hands come up, but some won't. How many people have played the game of tag?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's hand would go up.
It's such a wholesome thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So 5-year plans to really blow this up and grow it, and then start federations and grow this to becoming an Olympic sport. It's 20-second chases. It's like a video game. I always say it's an action sport meets an e-sport.
Yeah.
You know,
It's interesting though that you're growing the business of the physical WODs and the federations and the memberships around that, and then you're also monetizing the entertainment value through television and through the streaming. Like, it's you gotta, I mean, to have both of those, it's brilliant.
I think it's got to be a 360 business. You know, I think there's some instances of business of that's your one focus and it's this one road and it just does that. But for this sport, you need to license those quads. You need to get them out there for people to participate. You need to get athletes involved. You need to get the content out there. You need to sell tickets, sell merchandise, get people to fall in love with it, follow it, and become fans. So it's another thing of, like, you know, consistently pivoting to try to figure out ways to grow the business, but staying focused. You know, you can't do everything at once.
No, that's the patience. That's the most difficult thing.
Be patient, for sure. Amen.
As long as you have patient partners, I think that's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Epic, man. Is there anything else you want to chat about, or are we good? Yeah. So where can we find World Chase Tag online?
Our YouTube channel, for sure. Just go to World Chase Tag. For some of that fun short form, go to TikTok. We've got 1.5 million followers on there. It's great. All that short form content. X, we're at, but Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are our mainstays.
And you're syndicating on Sundays across the United States.
Sundays across the United States, anywhere between. It's usually in the late afternoon, say like the 6 to midnight hour that we air on all these stations, and you can see us on Fubo TV if you have Fubo. We're launching on Tubi soon, and hopefully expanding more.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for swinging by, man. This was amazing.
It was great. Yeah. Thank you.
And I love that you kind of we just figured it all out from the start.
I love being improv. I'm so bad at it.
It's so much fun. The key is that you got to let the tangents go, but then you got to be able to pull people back.
I know you do. You do, for sure. Absolutely.
But hey, we can look up here, and we got the split screen just to show people that we're in the same fucking room.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't do Zoom.
I like it. Thank you.
Thank you for swinging by.
Cheers.
And that's the production quality. We fade to black, and we're out.